Does The Mummy's Hand improve on the original Mummy film, or is it worse? Find out today on Really Old Movies. Welcome to Really Old Movies. I'm your host, Harrison Scullin, and today I'll be talking about The Mummy's Hand. And this is another Universal monster film, and this is a sequel to The Mummy from 1932, starring Boris Karloff. So, some essential movie details. This film does not actually have Boris Karloff. In fact, this is a different mummy altogether. See, the mummy that Boris Karloff played was called Imhotep. This one's called Charisse. So as a result of that, this is almost a reboot of the series because it's a totally different cast, totally different character. All right, so now I want to get into my thoughts on the film itself. So regards to the plot, I gave it a 2 out of 5. Now, before I get into this one, I need to remind you, I did not like the first one. I'm not a fan of it. And I thought it was a pretty slow, pretty boring film. And this one had a really good concept, a really good idea. And I could definitely see that the Brendan Fraser films actually stole a lot from this movie. Well, not stole, but they used a lot of elements from this movie. Like this one seems more like an action film, more like an adventure film, like Indiana Jones. This seemed more like what they were trying to do with the Mummy movies in the 2000s. So, I just didn't like the plot. It just bothered me that it's a totally different mummy. Like, I just don't understand that. I mean, I guess Imhotep did die, but I don't know. It just felt a little forced that they tried to shoehorn in. This guy was also there, and he also can live again and all that. It just felt very, very shoehorned. It just did not work at all for me. All right, in regards to the acting, I gave it a 3 out of 5. I actually liked the cast for the most part. They were really funny, really endearing. I kind of liked that. They didn't go too much into comedy because that would have been a little too much and I would have taken points away from that. But this one, it was pretty balanced. There were some scary moments and then there were some pretty funny moments. Kind of like what you would want to expect in an adventure film. And I liked a lot of the cast. The only people I didn't like, the only thing I really didn't like was the mummy himself. We hardly ever see him. And I'm not a huge fan of him. I don't know. It's just, I love seeing Boris Karloff. Even though I didn't like that movie, I thought he was probably one of the best parts of the movie. So, yeah, that's why I gave it 3 out of 5. It was still pretty good. In regards to directing, I gave it a 2.5 out of 5. I thought it was okay, not great. The reason why I don't like the directing is, the reason why I didn't give a perfect score to the directing is some scenes felt kind of flat. Like I totally didn't recognize the guy who's kind of the bad guy, not the actual mummy, but the other guy who's helping him out. I didn't realize that was him. I was a little confused. I was like, who is this guy in the fez? I don't understand. So yeah, I was a little confused with that. And because of that, I gave it 2.5 out of 5. I wasn't really clear in the direction he was trying to go. And like I said, I don't understand why we have a different mummy. And the ending, it just ended so abruptly. I hated that. I hate these abrupt endings. They're, as much as I love these monster movies, they're notorious for these crazy, abrupt, just out of nowhere endings. So that's why I gave the directing 2.5 out of 5. Versus cinematography and special effects. Once again, it's actually really good. The costume of the mummy is incredible. They did this kind of cool coloration over his eyes. You could kind of see they rotoscoped over his eyes. They're like black beads. They're really scary and menacing looking. I really liked that. And so that's why I gave it 4 out of 5. I thought it was incredible. In regards to music, 3 out of 5. I thought it was pretty generic, nothing too fancy, and it did the job. Like I said, it made it feel like an adventure film, and I could see this one being a little bit more watchable than the first one. I honestly did not like the first one. All right, so tallying that all up, that brings my Letterboxd score to a 2.9 out of 5, which I'll be rounding to a 3 out of 5. So would I recommend this movie? Yes, but just keep in mind, it's not the same mummy as the first movie, and not the same cast. It's all completely different people. It's almost a reboot, honestly. It's not really a sequel. It's a reboot. All right. Well, those are my thoughts on The Mummy's Hand. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. Make sure to subscribe to our Instagram and Facebook at Really Old Movies, where I discuss details about the week's particular film. New podcast episodes are released Saturdays at 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, and Spotify. Thank you so much. This has been Really Old Movies. I'm your host, Harrison Scullin. Take care.